Hi, this is Nathan Tintle. In this video, we're going to talk about how to think of and write research questions that could be investigated with a statistical study. We'll start with an example from the Introduction to Statistical Investigations textbook on organ donation. In the organ donation study, the researchers said, hey, there's not enough organ donors. How could we increase this number? One potential solution would be to change the way we ask people to be organ donors on their driver's license application. If we change that wording, then the researchers are going to want to know, well, is that effective? Is that any different than what we had with the old wording? So the researchers asked a question. Is there a method which will increase the likelihood a person agrees to become an organ donor? They then focused and narrowed that question down to ask, does the default option presented to driver's license applicants influence the likelihood of someone becoming an organ donor? That's a question, a research question, that can be asked with a statistical study. Here's a few more examples. If you wanted to know whether males or females tended to study more, you could do a survey of males and females at your school. You could ask them how much they typically study. You could compare those numbers. You could ask, does sleep deprivation have lingering effects? We're going to actually look at a study like this later in the course. We'll compare people who are kept up all night versus those that weren't, and not look at them the next day, but look at them many days later and see whether there's a lingering effect of that sleep deprivation. Statistics can tell you, is the latest weight loss fad diet working or not? Are people losing weight? Are we seeing a significant difference between their pre-diet weight and their post-diet weight? Or is it any different than other diets? Another option is if you're working for a company and there were two different potential advertising slogans for your company. Which one should you choose? Well, if you think of the question statistically, you might come up with a number of things that you feel like the advertising slogan should be doing. Making people feel positively about your company or giving them other particular emotions. You then might do a study where you show individuals one or both slogans and ask them to rate the kind of emotions that they're feeling when they hear the slogan, and then making a decision that way. A few cautions. First, when researchers move from a broad question of interest to a narrower one, design a study, conduct that study, and draw conclusions. It's a challenging process, and it takes practice. Some people say that statistics is both an art and a science. The art is understanding how to take research questions and turn them into statistical studies and draw valid conclusions from them. It takes practice. Another caution is that statistical questions are not anecdotal. That is, you're not going to use statistics to say, well, because Uncle Joe had a heart attack and he smoked, I'm not going to. Statistics is really about gathering multiple observations. An anecdote is a single observation. Statistics is really about getting multiple observations. Once we have those multiple observations, which we call observational units, we're then going to measure one or more variables on those observational units. So we might look at a whole bunch of people who smoke and look at whether or not they've had heart attacks, then draw a conclusion based on that sort of long-run sense of how certain variables, say smoking, are related to other variables, say heart attacks.